Thanks much for taking the time out. Neeraj here, good morning. What's the feeling, Ajay?
Good morning,
the rest of the world is getting bogged down by the coronavirus scare, and maybe rightly so. Would you be skeptical on the prospects in the near term because of the uncertainties?
Well, rest of the world is getting bogged down except the United States of America, which continues to power ahead. If you see the stocks there, nothing is stopping them. So I think we have a situation of a tear-away rally in the American market. The rest of the world, yes, you're right, at least Southeast Asia is slumbering away. But I think US is stand out. And India, to an extent, that now that all the arrows have been fired with the with the great tailwind of the low oil prices, if there is a time we can do a revival, this is it. Now, if it doesn't happen, that is bad news. So right now, with the RBI coming in with all its guns blazing, getting at focused lending to the the real estate sector, as well as this thing, forbearance for defaults. The big tax cut which the corporates got, if there was no tax cut, can you imagine what the P&L will look like of all the companies in India? They would have been devastated. So all the people who said that the government needs to give largest, the government has given the biggest largest to the largest of the players. Now what more can the government do? The smallest, of course, will continue to disappear and become extinct, as the Darwin's law says. But I think if anything now is the time for it to change. If it does not change in the next 3 to 6 months, I think you got serious trouble ahead in the festive season. Anyway, this is a lean season, next 3 to 6 months, so we're going to have trouble. And the second part is, I think what's also happening is people need to evaluate the competitive landscape is changing. If you look at the cars, look at the paints, look at I think you're speaking to about Page Industries, look at Aisha's motorcycle, see how the competitive landscape changes and the market premium disappear in a jiffy. Aisha has lost it already on the bikes, Maruti has lost it on the cars. Whether the fledgling JSW paint will do it for the paints, I don't know, but it may end up. Page is being bothered by whether it is Louis Philippe Van Heusen coming up with this thing or Monte Carlo coming in. So you also need to factor in more than economy, a sectoral competitive pressure building up in the system for the people with large equity values.
So Ajay, would it be a fair assessment that we will essentially have to take a call on which direction we believe or what an individual investor believes could happen? With all the ammo being fired, as you said, or the arrows being fired, should one be constructive in the hope that things would turn around and therefore valuations or earnings or both will actually move up?
See, let's be honest about it. Everyone who comes to your channel or comes on the TV has a vested interest to get more money to manage. So by and large, even if we are dishonest to some extent, we have to keep saying that yes, it is good time to put in money. So to that extent, one has to be constructively, because otherwise we are going to, our customers are going to tell us, listen, why are you asking us to put money when you don't believe it's the right time? So theoretically, all the fund managers will always tell you always is the right time. So that's as far as the argument of constructive engagement is concerned. The second more important point is, which comes out the fallout of the first one, is that where do you park your portfolio? And the market has rewarded monopolies. If you look at whether it's Nestle or a liver or or even the MNC pharma firms, those have been rewarded very, very handsomely, the investors in those things. So I think one is now saying economy on one side, monopoly on the other side, and the sheer scarcity value of equity on the third side. These three dynamics are playing out. All the other value stocks, if you look at GAIL, Power Grid, all the infrastructure stocks, they're down in the dumps. In fact, I think this last 5 years would be a story of the biggest value destruction of perhaps PSU stocks. So leave them, when they will revive, what will happen to them, we have no idea of that. So I think the story is playing out in the same way as it did for the last 3 years. The same player, the same thing, the same Bajaj Finance of the world, the same PVR, the same Nestle. Nothing, the narrative is not changing. And if the narrative doesn't change, economy will not change. But as a stock market, let's not worry about economy. Let's worry about supply and demand of stocks. Let's worry about the good companies where we all invest in. Economy is somebody else's worry.
Hi Ajay, good morning to you. Will the street then reward a duopoly in the telecom space? Of course, this is still a conjecture. It remains to be seen whether Vodafone Idea will survive or not. And reports indicating post the hearing on Friday, government could be receiving a fraction of its AGR dues. Bharti is at its 52-week high, maybe lifetime high level. Reliance has done well in the last 1 or 2 years. And you said stocks which have been doing well will continue to do well. So will these two feature in that?
Of course, okay, I have a holding, so to that extent, I have a vested interest to say yes, it will do well. Otherwise, I won't have the stock holdings. But I think Vodafone Idea will survive as a company. The promoters might change. At the end of the day, what might happen is, they might sell out. They might go to the IBC route and get a concession in terms of settlement with the government. Whatever happens, I think the company will survive. The promoters may change. Maybe private equity comes in, maybe Bharti Airtel buys it, maybe Reliance buys it. One doesn't know what's going to happen to that company, or maybe competitive commission will not approve it, so third party will come and buy at a cheaper price. So I think there is no reason to worry about a duopoly. I think three will remain. The only question is whether Vodafone and Birla will run it or somebody else will run it. I think that's the bottom line, and we will get a clarity in the next 3 to 6 months as to what's going to happen. Even if they do a sellout at a good price, whatever, ₹1 share, and somebody takes it over, well, that's also one way to get out of the company. So I don't think we should worry. The question you asked is, of course they will make hay, because if you are a Vodafone holder of a SIM today, you would kind of worry, and of course the service will deteriorate because capex will not come through. No bank is going to lend them money anymore. So I think their pipeline of money is over now, as far as this is concerned. So you would, if you're a subscriber to Vodafone, you will tend to worry that what is going to happen to your connection and long term before a small trickle of migration becomes a deluge, and Airtel puts a moratorium and says, we can take only so more, we can't take more compared to what has happened. So I think people will start migrating. I think Airtel and Jio will get rewarded. I think more Airtel than Jio perhaps, because whether we like it or not, Airtel has a much longer standing in the market with a better set of customers. You've seen the ARPU, etc. So I think you will get rewarded, no doubt about it. But I don't think the fears that there will be a duopoly are wrong. This will remain. Maybe Vodafone and Birla will not be the owners.
Okay, let's see what happens with Vodafone Idea. But for the time being, we are seeing some bit of at least a relief. The stock's up almost 15 to 20% in trade. Ajay, what else? Which other pockets look attractive to you? We've seen chemical companies doing well, and the numbers from the paint companies have also not been bad despite of the consumption slowdown. We've seen last 3 quarters, they've managed to perform well, and even from the consumption space, you said Nestle, HUL of the world, they continue to do well despite of the slowdown. What do you like in these spaces?
Well, that's why I said for old people like us, the problem is most of these are in the portfolio. So the key question is, how much do you keep topping them more and more? That's the key question. It's not that we don't have them in the portfolios for. So I think the key question is, where do you find the next bit of little extra return? Perhaps in our view, you would find it in healthcare. And the reason we say is that as more and more government compromises on the price control, what they came up with, the vindictive attitude toward the industry and slam price controls is getting relaxed. I think if price control gets relaxed, number one. Number two, all Indian pharma companies are deleveraging. If you look at the debt to equity ratios of most of them has improved appreciably, that's 2. Third, local market is growing well, 9 to 10% growth rate is coming, and therefore impact of US is now getting diminished over time. So to that extent, we have got a much better thing. And I think going forward, if there is a more focus on health, etc., thanks to what happened in Delhi election, maybe everybody will jump into the Mohalla clinic game and more medicine will get sold. That will be an interesting play, I think, healthcare. And, it's what bothers you most is that why would volumes drop in a market like India, which has happened in the medicines in India. That's the scary part, that is India consuming less medicines because we can't afford it anymore. But leave that worry aside. I think the pharma sector in India perhaps would be one big gainer, also because Donald Trump is going to ensure that price controls don't come on at least medicines which his American companies produce or even European companies produce. So I would believe that healthcare could be, it has done well, recently a little bit marginally well, very safe place to be, and I think it should be an outlier in the next 12 months.
Okay, and the markets have almost given up the morning gains, which lasted, I guess, for just 4 or 5 minutes. So Nifty is now down below the 12,100 mark. It's seen a cut of about 0.25%. Nifty Bank is the one which has been a laggard. Remember, for the week, Nifty Bank was down 1%, while Nifty was just about flattish. And the broader markets too have seen some bit of cuts coming by. You've got the Nifty Mid-Cap Index now, which is down. In fact, all the sectoral indices are down. You've got the Nifty PSU Banking Index, which is the top sectoral loser right now, with cuts of 1.3%, and the volatility seems to have spiked. India VIX is up about nearly 3 to 4%, Neeraj.
I think Ajay made a very important point about the PSU's wealth destruction. And Ajay, just one question. It will be theoretical because we can't quite figure out what will actually happen. But these demands against these PSUs for coughing up AGR dues, they are all going to appeal against it. But everything from a GAIL to All India is correcting and correcting quite viciously, despite optically valuations not looking all that bad. I mean, how would you be a brave heart and try and catch a falling knife in the hope that sense will prevail and these companies won't have to pay, or would you leave them alone?
Well, the sensible answer is, okay, we have started buying them. To be honest, I've got GAIL, I've got Power Grid, etc. So to that extent, we have started buying into this stock because I think they are at historic lows. Dividend yield is phenomenal, 6.5 rupees or 540 on GAIL, for instance, at this point of time on a stock which is 120 or 121 when the dividend was announced. So I think sense will prevail. I think Supreme Court will look at it because Supreme Court has given a very nice way to get out of this mess. They have said go to TD-SAT. Now, if TD-SAT itself delivers a positive judgment, then there is no reason for anyone to do anything about it, because then the matter gets closed at this level, will never reach the Supreme Court. Only if TD-SAT gives the judgment adverse to these companies will the matter reach the Supreme Court. So I think Supreme Court has very deftly disassociated these cases from the telecom cases. It's a very, very smart move. So I think the worry of these companies getting lapped up with AGR, I think is overblown. I think it's a good opportunity. But as I said, PSU stock is not about opportunities because the correction. PSU stocks have been on a systemic decline since last 5 years. We've never seen an upliftment in the stock. Every time we believe it's a great value, 0.7 times book value, 0.6 times book value, and they fail to surprise you on the downside. So yes, we have been braveheart. We have bought 2 or 3 stocks affected by AGR based upon Supreme Court directive that go to TD-SAT instead of coming to us for clarification, which also buys them time, because when the TD-SAT will do its review, then it will go to Supreme Court again, and therefore year to year at least is now gone before these companies have to cough up money. So I think these companies are safe. So if there is a panic reaction, I believe it's a wrong reaction and they will get the relief. Now, whether you get the whole upside in a PSU stock, God only knows. It's not done well for the last 5 years. No reason to believe it will do well future. But at these prices, you got to be nuts not to be there.
Okay, you got to be nuts not to be there. That's an interesting way to put it. Ajay, take a moment to thank you for joining in today and giving us your thoughts. Appreciate your time, as always.